Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Many of us have those stubborn pounds that seem impossible to lose, no matter how good we eat or how hard we work out. My solution is PlushCare. PlushCare is a leading telehealth provider with doctors who are there for you day and night to partner with you in your weight loss journey. They can prescribe FDA-approved weight loss medications like Wegovy and Zepbound for those who qualify. Plus, they accept most insurance plans. To get started, visit plushcare.com/weightloss. That's plushcare.com/weightloss.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council.
He said, "Look, I'd love you to make the record for me." And I thought, wow, that's really nice. But with that came this huge responsibility because he was dying. So he knew, and I knew, it's going to be his last record. So, I was kind of a little bit apprehensive because, that's what he's going to be leaving behind him.
Mary Kennedy, I know that you love music because I've heard you singing many's a time in your own house and when we're away on holidays and stuff. So music is important in your life, isn't it?
Yeah, in the house there's always a sing-song. And Deirdre, of course, is a
Deirdre's a
singer,
fantastic singer, your
and
sister.
we do a duet of Danny Boy. And
many's a time I've heard it, and lovely it is.
She does the heavy lifting, I have to say. I just join in. But I do I'm going to take credit for this, a mean Edelweiss, where I'm like the choir mistress and I'm leading the company. They all have to wear a table napkin on their heads, and it's important that they follow my lead and that they embrace their inner Maria from The Sound of Music. It's beautiful, isn't it? You've done that, haven't you?
Shocking bossy. Anyway, but musical. So we forgive a lot. But anyway, clearly the music scene's alive and well in your house, always has been. But it's everywhere in Ireland. True. It's inescapable, really, isn't it? I mean, music is a heartbeat. It's a pulse that we just never let it fade in Ireland. Thank goodness. It's and we're lucky that we have such musical talent in the country, wells of music to draw on, and then the new music from young people who probably mightn't even be aware of what where they're drawing the music from the pubs with the trad and the indie bands and the music that I simply can't understand. But it's wonderful to live in a country where music is loved and appreciated and everywhere, basically, isn't it?
And it's lovely to see young, musicians developing their talents and kind of, embracing their need to make music. It really is.
Am I right? Didn't our guest today write a song specially for you? You've actually had a famous person compose a song for you.
Don Mescall, who's a very dear friend of mine, but also he did write a song. It was after I'd done Dancing with the Stars, and he was watching it with his mother, and it was called Life is a Beautiful Dance. It really is very nice. You get it on Spotify, Mary, or wherever you get your podcasts. But Deirdre and I sang it together, and it was very, very nice, yeah. Don, it's lovely to have you here in the studio. Yeah. And apart from that wonderful song that you penned for myself and Deirdre, you've just had so many moments in your career. There have been highs, there have been lows, but you've had more than 16 million hits on YouTube. We've been looking at names that have recorded your music: Rascal Flatts, Backstreet Boys, Jerry Halliwell, Ronan Keating, Cliff Richard, Nathan Carter, Boyzone, Shane Filan. We could go on and on. And it's lovely to say that you are here from Limerick your partner is Maura Ryan, and you're now living in Belturbet in County Cavan. And you're very welcome, Don.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah,
God, it's great to have you here. That's an extraordinary story so far.
Yeah,
Amazing. It's amazing.
To go from, I suppose, from London to where you lived, and now to be living outside Belturbet.
In a converted church,
Yes,
you told me.
converted by Don. You know,
Converted
so
by
you,
you? Oh,
do you love that, Don?
I do, yeah, because...
Describe the setting to us.
Well, first of all, it really, how I found the church was an interesting story, I think, really, because I suffer from a little bit of insomnia. And so I was living in London, and this is the year pre-COVID, the year before COVID. And you know, I couldn't sleep, and I was looking at, as you do, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was looking at, you know, chateaus in France and stuff like that, and I came across the channel, and I was looking in Kent and places like that. I ended up looking at islands around Ireland, little islands, you know, maybe for sale for somebody who didn't have any money. And then I found an article from the Irish Times that was 5 or 6 years old, on the church in Belturbet. On, you know, the headline was something like, buy a piece of Irish history in County Cavan, you know, this old church is for sale. It kind of weirdly, I just fell in love with it. I knew instantly that I was going to live there. You know, even though it was 5 years old. So I remember I emailed the estate agent, and it was a kind of a funny email. Look, I kind of came across this article. I know it's 5 or 6 years old. Did it sell? You know? And then he didn't get back to me. So I phoned on the Monday, I think that was the weekend, and I phoned on the Monday, and he was, no, that's still for sale. And I said, oh, wow, I'd love to come and see it. And he almost said, yeah, I bet you would, because for 5 years he'd been showing it to me. And he was sick of it. And then he said, look, I will show it to you. He said, where are you calling from? And I said, well, I'm calling from London. He went, oh, God, just call me when you're over here, because he thought he'd never hear from me again. So the following week, I managed to take a couple of days off from my own studio, and I booked a flight, and I went to Cavan, I think, for the first time. I hired a car in Dublin, in the airport, and I met him, and the first thing that he did was he took me for a pint.
To soften you up.
To soften me up. And then we went out to look at this church down this road, this endless road. Well, you've been on the road, Mary. Endless road. I really didn't think there was ever going to be an end to it. And then we went over this lovely little bridge, stone bridge, onto the island, as it's known. And I saw the church for the first time, and I just knew. And he said, look, he said, I'm going to give you the keys, because he knew I was around for a few days. And he said, drop them back into the office. So I went out there every day at different times of the day and just tried to imagine what it would be like. And I met neighbours and stuff like that, which was lovely, you know. I met the Fitzpatricks, who are the main inhabitants of the island, and I'm happy to say the natives are happy.
And what state was the place in? Was it
pretty bad, actually. Yeah, pretty bad, you know, because it hadn't been occupied for maybe 5 or 6 years. Now, it turns out the chap that I bought the place from was also a musician, and he had kind of used it as a sort of a rehearsal studio, Brendan. His idea of the church really wasn't a home, it was more a rehearsal space where he could stay Monday to Friday, and then he went to his house at the weekends. I had heard that if you kind of take something of yourself and leave it there. So I had a plectrum, as I always do, inside my pocket, one of my favourite plectrums. So I stuck it into a little crack in the window on the inside of the church, and I said, I'll be back for that.
Wow, gosh.
Turns out there was a lot of complications with the whole buying it and everything, but I knew I was going to get it.
And what was the plan, Don? Were you planning to up
No,
sticks from London?
the plan actually was I had bought it the year previous to COVID. So my plan was that maybe it was a kind of a 5 or 6 year plan where maybe every summer I would come over, do some work on it, maybe come over if I had a quiet week or something in the studio. But it was never going to be, I'm going to move there. And then what happened was I had this beautiful studio in Greenwich on the river. Which, you know, I couldn't have been happier there. It was an old converted building from 1811. It was an old army sentry house. And I loved it, you know, and that's where my artists, people that I write for were all coming, and it was, you know, quite central. It was easy. But, you know, COVID hit, and then all of a sudden, you know, I was sitting there with my engineer, McAlesse, kind of twiddling our fingers going, what are we going to do now? And I didn't own the building, I was leasing it. So I had 2 years left on the lease.
Because money presumably just stopped at that point.
Completely stopped.
Dead.
Completely stopped dead. And we were literally sitting in the studio. Nobody's making records. Nobody's looking for songs. No record companies coming in with people, nothing. So thankfully, I was on very, very good terms with the company that I was leasing the building from, because we used to do a lot of work together in events, and they liked the fact that, you know, one week you'd have Jerry Halliwell from the Spice Girls, and then you'd have Rona Keating, or you'd have, you know, whatever coming down. It was good for them. So I phoned up the kind of chairman or whatever, and I said, look, I think I'm in trouble. And he said, you know, you and me both. And I said, look, you know, I've got over 2 years left on the lease. And he said, look, don't worry about it. We'll just let you out of the lease, no penalties, no anything.
Good karma.
Great karma, you know, we stay in touch, you know.
That's remarkable, actually, because a lot of people did not find that level of generosity.
Exactly. And so we were all great friends, and he just said, you do whatever you want. And they let me store things there until I was ready. There's a certain kind of calmness. I mean, I'm sure you get that in every church, but there is a sort of a vibe when you come into Quivy Church, and the vibe is, it's all going to be okay.
Well, it's peaceful and serene, as with other churches.
Don't worry.
As well. But it sounds as if you also, like, allowed yourself to become part of the community very quickly, and people, your neighbours would respond to that.
Yeah, I certainly did, because you know, look, I'm from a tiny little hurling parish in County Limerick. I went to school in Newport, County Tipperary. I mean, I was that's that parochial hub that you have in a small parish. You know, starting with the church and the GAA. To be honest, isn't it always? So I had missed out on that for maybe 26 years plus. In the UK and in little time in Nashville and all of that. So to come back to that, where I got to know my neighbours. I mean, I was living beside someone in the UK, and I was living beside them for 4 years, and I didn't know what their surname was. So you know, my neighbours were dropping in food and...
And what about your family? You're from a big family, aren't you?
There's only a small family, Mary, actually. There's only 11 of us.
Is that all? Asher's nothing.
The Burns up the road, I think, had 14.
Wow.
So I always felt a little bit inadequate.
Many girls, many boys?
I have 8 sisters and 2 brothers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And my mother...
God bless your mother.
She's incredible. She's 100. She turned 100 this year. She's an incredible lady. She's fun.
Where are you in the...
Second youngest.
Oh, okay. And is there a girl or a boy below you?
A girl, Catherine. Yeah, she's closest to me, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And your mum didn't have it easy, sure she didn't, because
No,
she was
Mum
a
didn't
young
have
mother.
it easy. She
when
was a
your
young
dad
mother
died.
when Dad died, yeah.
What age was he when he died?
Dad was 57 when he died. And Dad died in Carrick-on-Laois, actually, at a hurling match, and I was with him.
What age
Tom
were
and I was 10.
Oh, dear.
That was the day that everything changed, to be honest.
Did he die in front of you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
my Lord.
Kind of, yeah. So, that was a very, very traumatic time, you know.
How did that change your life at home?
Everything changed. I mean, you know, that I like in my head, I can actually remember the sky changing. Everything changed. Nothing was ever the same. Dad was a great guy, and he was very popular in the parish and stuff like that. He was involved in the GAA. That's why he was at the match. He was a selector on the team. He made the hurleys at one stage for the team, you know. And Dad was, he was a mechanic, and Mum would say that he worked in CIE, and he'd leave for work, I don't know, maybe at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Then he'd be home for his dinner maybe at 6, right? He'd sit down and have his dinner. And then after his dinner, he'd open up the garage at home, where he serviced everybody's, you know, tractor, truck, lawnmowers, motorcycle. And, you know, and he'd always be sort of, you know, inventing some piece of machinery or a tool or, you know. So I would imagine maybe that's where I get my love of upcycling and motorcycles. And I think we're really lucky with Mum too, because she's very well read, she's very artistic. She embraced a lot of things later in life, I suppose, after Dad passed away. She's a wonderful painter. She's a wonderful poet. You know what I mean? Like all of these things. And she recites monologues. And I mean, she's just this very artistic person. and lovable, you know. And
were they close, very close as a couple?
They were. You know, I think I may have said this to you before, but it's even funny. Like if I'm with Mam for a night or down for a weekend or whatever, and I speak about Dad, because I would have a lot of questions still about my father, but I don't remember a lot. Now, I think that's probably because of the actual trauma involved in it. You know,
you just remember that bad day when the world went dark.
Yeah, and bizarrely, yeah, and I do really. The world went dark. Yeah, I remember that moment when we were out on the pitch. What happens is when you're at a hurling match and you're a child like that or a young kid, you know, between matches, it's your turn to get out on the pitch and just hit the ball. That's the most exciting part, you know. And Dad would have been in the dressing room in Carrick-on-Lishan. He would have been. He's a selector on the team, and at that time, you know, the dressing rooms would have been very confined spaces, almost like milking parlours, almost, you know, like no air and all of that. And I remember my brother Tom running out onto the pitch crying, and I really didn't see my brother Tom crying a lot. And, you know, come quickly. And then we ran back and we kind of pulled our way through a big circle of people. And I remember thinking at the time, that was the first time I'd seen my father on his back on the ground, ever. Like he looked like a giant on his back, and there was someone trying to resuscitate him and all of that. And I remember thinking, life is so fragile. And I remind myself of that moment. You know, 1 minute he's getting the team ready, he's telling them what positions, he's telling them, you know, the structure of the game, and the next minute life was just taken from him.
And you know, today there'd be a portable defibrillator.
I know, and
you'd probably celebrate a big birthday with him.
Yeah, I know. So
that's how fragile it is.
Yeah, so that's you know, that I remind myself of that all the time. But it's funny when my mother is speaking about my father, her whole persona kind of changes. She sort of sits up in the chair, and she smiles, and she's. I would say she's still very much in love with him. You know, and that's a wonderful thing to watch after all of this time. You know, she has such memories, such fond memories. I remember she said to me once, she said, you know, your father never raised his voice in all the years to me, in all the years we're married. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's going to be so hard to
to do the same.
Yeah, you know, to follow in that person's footsteps. But no, he by all accounts, he was a great guy. I just wish that I'd have known him a little bit better. He kind of creeps into my songwriting the odd time, and I would wonder, would my career have gone in the same direction? Possibly, you know, would have even become a musician? I don't know.
Did you use music to kind of process the? Yeah,
I did. You know, I think without actually knowingly.
Okay.
I think what I did was I was lucky in a lot of ways, where with my early songwriting, it was almost like a pressure valve, and I was able to unload these feelings that I had, this kind of darkness from that time, in song form. And you know, there's a great, that's why I would encourage anybody with younger kids or teenagers or anything like that. Music is such a great, wonderful medium, you know. It's not alone just for communication, but there's something about it. It lifts the soul, you know. And it can be, like, music became kind of my best friend after my dad died in a lot of ways. Now, at that time, I wasn't playing an instrument, but I was certainly listening to a lot of music. I was thinking about it the other day, you know, maybe when I was 12 or something, I think Catherine and I, for a Christmas present, were given, Mam bought this thing, and I thought, like, it was the most modern thing I'd ever seen, and it was like a Sanyo or a Sony, and it had a record player, and it had a tape deck, and it had a radio, and it was all in the one thing, and it had a kind of a glass top where you'd put on the vinyl, you know, and two separate speakers. Wow. You know what I mean? And that was like, oh my God.
A stereo,
you know. And I would just lie on the floor in the bedroom. Well, it was in the living room, I think, first of all, and just play all of these albums that my sisters had kind of left behind them, you know, like when they went off to college or whatever.
What kind of music would they have been into?
Well, you know, none of it was Irish trad, funnily enough. So I didn't have that basis of Irish traditional music. In some ways, I wish I had, to be honest, because I remember talking to my buddy Paul Brady about that, and he really is kind of steeped in this Irish trad stuff, where I didn't have that. I was listening to Crosby, Stills and Nash and Neil Young and Joni Mitchell and
beautiful guitar work, though. That's no wonder you got into the guitar.
And that was I thought all music was that. So story-based songs.
Would your mom sing?
She does sing. She may not be the best singer in the world, but I love her voice. She said an interesting thing to me recently, where there was a Christmas song that I had written quite a few years ago. Well, not that long ago, but a lot of people had covered it, someone in Canada, and then so Boys Don't Cut It. A lot of people had cut it, and I played it in my version. And she said she hadn't heard it before, and she said, I really like that song. What's it called? And I said, The Hour Before Christmas. She said, oh my God. She said, if you got someone with maybe a less croaky voice, which was me, that was me singing. She said, you could have a hit with that. I said, thank you. And I thought to myself, it's a good job I'm not too sensitive.
But how did it begin? All of these big names coming to you for songs, Don?
The first thing that really happened was I had decided that I was playing in pubs, and I was playing mainly kind of County Clare, County Limerick, all of that, and I was playing kind of every night of the week, to be honest, and I enjoyed it, I loved it, and I was playing a repertoire of songs, again, that I had grown up listening to. And those audiences, I would sneak in something that I'd written myself, and I would say, here's a little song I wrote about how I feel. Generally, that was the moment that everybody went to the bar, because nobody wanted to hear about how I felt. To be honest, they just wanted American Pie. So I knew that that's not going to work for me, right? That's not going to work. They don't know the song, so I thought, look, the only way really to move forward in this, I have to commit to it. So I decided to really. It was like having a sex change. I became a singer-songwriter and moved to London, really. Ironically, one of the first songs that I'd written when I moved to London was about how much I missed home. And I remember the day I wrote it, I was sitting on the wall outside the Cuddy Sark pub, and I was thinking, it was a Sunday, and I was thinking, at home now, they'll be going to a hurling match, they'll have had lunch. And here I am in London, and I wrote this song called Road to Glory. And I sent it via a friend of mine in the UK in Limerick, and to Matty Fox, who was managing Christy Moore at the time, and Christy Moore being kind of the biggest artist at the time, and fantastic career and all that. So I sent, and I couldn't believe I got a reply. You know what I mean? Because that was unusual, and the reply was, I really like this song. I'm also managing a new artist called Eleanor Shanley. And I'd like this to be her first single. This is the best song that we have for her. And I was thinking, oh my God, isn't that incredible? And I had heard Eleanor singing with Dead On Him, funnily enough. So I thought, geez, I love her voice. That's great. They invited me to a gig. I think Christy was playing the Dominion or something. Eleanor was opening for him. And they invited me to the gig. I went along. She sang the song in the opening set, and just thought, oh my God, I'm so delighted. And that was the start kind of Eleanor's solo career. So we kind of both started at the same time almost, And so that opened the door for me, kind of Irish-wise. And then my biggest break at that time was out of the blue after being playing in the Mean Fiddler for so many nights, I can't tell you. Anytime they give, you didn't get paid, by the way.
Well, how did you live? How did you live?
It was difficult. I couldn't put. I still would do the odd maybe Saturday night or Sunday night in a pub
for a few pounds.
Because you had to. But generally, you didn't get paid as a singer-songwriter. Now, if you got to open for some of the bigger artists, you would get something. You'd get travel money or whatever. So out of the blue, I got a phone call. Would I open for an African-American folk protest singer called Richie Havens? And what the guy in the Mean Fiddler didn't know was that my whole career at that stage was based on Richie Havens. He was my biggest idol. He was everything about him. The reason that I played, the guitars that I played, the tunings, everything. It was just, he was my Jesus. It was almost like pinch yourself, because this couldn't be true. So he stopped and he turned around to me and he said, look, would you like to play a song? And I said, okay. And I took a lyric sheet out and I put it on the floor, and he was really laughing at that, because he said to me, is that a new song? And I said, yeah. And he said, I love that about new songs. He said, you know, that's your best song right now, isn't it? And I said, yeah. So I put it down on the floor and I played it. And there was kind of quietness, you know. And then he said to me, would you allow me to record that on my new album? Just like that. Like, it was just too much, actually. I could have collapsed. Honestly, it was actually too much. It was an emotional sort of overload, you know. And true to his word, the new record came out, the song was on it. He championed me all over America. He brought me over to America. I did shows with him all over the place and fell in love with the man, really, to be honest, you know.
Don, you brought the guitar with you, and I know the songwriter and performer in you's dying to give us a tune.
No, I tell you what it is, Mary. It's like the guitar, you know, I kind of feel a bit welded to it. So when I'm without it, I kind of feel, well, what am I doing? Because that's all I do, really. I write a few songs, you know what I mean? That's who I am, you know.
So give us a song then.
Well, I'll give you a bit of a song.
Bit of a song.
This is a little song about swallows. To be free like a bird, just to glide in the sky, looking down on the world as it passes you by, and all of our trouble and all of our fear could be somehow forgotten while we're gliding up here. Come with me, out to the blue, in these isles of sky. There'll be just me and you. We could swirl around in circles. We can glide through the air, leaving all of the madness and the crushing down there, and all of our sorrow and all of our tears could be somehow forgotten while we're gliding up here. And come with me, out to the blue, and in these isles of sky, there'll be just me and you. To be free like a bird, just to glide in the sky.
And that is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
There's never been a faster or easier way to start your weight loss journey than with PlushCare. PlushCare accepts most insurance plans and gives you online access to board-certified physicians who can prescribe FDA-approved weight loss medications like Wegovy and Zepbound for those who qualify. Take charge of your health and speak with a board-certified physician about a weight loss plan that's right for you. Get started today at plushcare.com/weight loss. That's plushcare.com/weight loss. plushcare.com/weight loss.
In those years in London, because the music scene would have had a reputation, you know, for being a bit on the wild side.
Yeah,
Did you get into
unfortunately,
that?
I kind of, I did.
You bought into that?
I bought into that. I lived in, at that time, you know, it was a kind of a crazy time, and generally as a gigging musician, as a job musician, you would live over pubs. There was so many drugs around. And so I lived over a pub in the Jack Don Stump in Homerton High Street, which was like living in Beirut, to be honest. It was a terrible place. And then I moved over a pub in Newington Green, which is a much nicer area in Stoke Newington. But I moved in with, you know, a couple of guys in the Pogues. So I can't even go into it. I mean, there are probably, if in all honesty, there's a couple of years that I don't quite remember exactly what went on. And you know, my best buddy over there at the time was Tom McManaman, and he was in the pubs with Shane McGowan and all of that. And I lived in a couple of pubs with him, you know, upstairs. And Tom passed away, and you know, it got to like the alcohol and the drugs. And then another friend of mine, Will De Lorenzo, was a drummer, same kind of thing. So there was this. There was carnage after that. It was an interesting moment. I looked around once, you know, I was trying to clean my life up so many times, and I came back to the pub after doing a gig one night, and I thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. I had a realization that I'm actually going to die.
Did you think that?
I thought to myself, if I don't get out of it now, I felt like I was slipping further and further and further.
And how long was this going on for, Dom?
It was going on for a couple of years, I suppose.
It?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I realised the slide, like, you know, I knew, and it was a pivotal moment in my life, because I had a Volkswagen, and I lived over the pub, and if you can imagine, really all I had was I had my guitar, and I had my suitcase, and I had the mattress on the bed. And I remember this clearly. On a Monday, the pub would kind of stay open all hours of the night, and you know, if the guys had been off on tour and they came back, and the tour bus used to be parked outside, you can imagine it was just a crazy time. And on the Monday, nothing happened on the Monday. They didn't even open up. And on the Monday evening, I think I got my mattress, my guitar, and my case, and I put it into my van, and I left with no forwarding address, because I thought to myself, if I don't go, I'm going to die. Mm-hmm. And on a Tuesday night, I had a little residency in Greenwich in the Cuddy Sark by the river. And there was an Irish guy that ran it, a really lovely guy, now a really successful businessman, Pat Phelan from Cork, incredibly successful guy. And I had befriended this guy, you know, and I knew that this guy had you know, would look out for me, you know. And I remember it was the only gig that I did in South London. So I'd go through the Blackwall Tunnel and down into Greenwich, and I thought, oh, it's lovely here. There's trees and there's Greenwich Park and the river. And I went to an estate agent, you know, like a realtor in Greenwich. And the reason that I knew to go there, he used to come to my gig. And I went in there and he said, geez, I wasn't expecting to see you, but you're playing tonight. You know, because everybody in Greenwich was at that gig when I'd play. And I said, yeah, I'd really like to move down here. And he started laughing. He said, that's not quite the way it happens. He said, when are you thinking of moving? I said, well, no, I'm moved. I said,
the stuff's outside.
No, he said, no, that's not how it. I said, no, I'm not going back to Northern. I want to stay here. And he was so helpful, that guy.
So was that the turning point?
That day, he found me a place.
He did. Wow.
And that was the beginning of my new life.
And did you go to rehab?
Oh, yeah, well, I'd been in different kind of rehabs over the years. But my rehab, really, moving to Greenwich, was being fortunate to meet my now ex-wife, Davina, who was a nurse. And
where's she from?
She's from London. And she changed my life, because she realised when we started dating that I was, you know, kind of recovering from so many things and trying to change my life and all of that. And medically, she was able to help me then, you know. So within It probably took 7 or 8 months. But, I was off alcohol. I wasn't taking anything else. I was back running. I was in a lovely relationship. And my life had just taken off then. It was like the universe, once I had, because I really believe in, God and the universe, maybe the same thing, I don't know. But it was like once I had set my intention, and closed doors, because that's what I feel about the universe. You have to close the door or else it's confused, And I'd closed doors on that life, and I really hadn't given a forward address. And I kind of fell out with some people because I didn't want to have the same group of friends, because I knew what would happen is the party would just... Yeah. So I changed my life, and the moment that I did that, all of these other opportunities opened up.
There you go, yeah.
And it was just everything I'd ever dreamed of.
And you and your wife then had a baby, didn't you?
Yeah, Eve, and that was, that the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and that was good for me because being a singer-songwriter or a musician, and you don't plan for this, but you have to become quite selfish. And it's kind of all about self-promotion, and it's all about this and it's all about that, and you have to have a kind of a confidence about you, even though a lot of the time it's kind of cooler to pretend that you don't have, but actually there has to be a bit of self-belief in there, but that in a lot of ways can be quite selfish. So to be able to let go of that one, that was still training to be a nurse. So I would look after Eve all day, every day. So that connection, even now with her, is just, that can never be broken.
How old is she now?
She's 25 now. So we speak every day and several times a day. And
you're still very friendly with Davina.
Oh, we're great buddies. Yeah, absolutely. She remarried a guy, and he's such a nice guy, and I stay with them, and I'd go out for a few beers with him. Yeah, I mean, non-alcoholic beer now, but he's a lovely, lovely guy, and no, we're. So why wouldn't you be? We were together for 15 years.
Yeah.
She's a huge part of my life.
And what, did it just run its course, the marriage?
Yeah, it kind of did, and I think the more success that you start to have, you're drawn away all the time because you're committed to follow up. Like if when you sign with the record company, you sign with the publisher. Then part of what you're doing is you're kind of committing to another relationship in a lot of ways. There's three people in the relationship, 3 people in the bed, So so that was a difficult thing too, because I could see it happening. So with spending a lot of time in the States, especially because they were predominantly, that was the sort of artist that I was writing for, and you couldn't say no, because like if you said no, there was somebody else, And Dav loves music, but she's not as sort of obsessed with music as I was and am in a lot of ways. I have to check myself, I have to realise even, getting to know Mara and this wonderful relationship I'm in for the last 4 years, I have to keep a check on myself, because, when I'm in the studio, in the church, time disappears. And I'm happy at 3 o'clock in the morning to be working on a song or working on a mix or whatever, but that's not kind of fair on the other person in the relationship, So what helps me, I think, a lot with that is that I have the other interests of the motorcycles and the upcycling and stuff like that. And Maura quite likes that.
What difference has Maura made to your life?
Well, I think with Maura, because she had an understanding of the entertainment business.
Having been married to Jerry Ryan, yeah.
Having been married to Jerry Ryan, she knew how it kind of worked. So the pressure that I would have felt with my previous relationship of being away from that person or the things that you have to do, she'd kind of understand it. She'd go, well, I know what he's doing. He's got to do that. That's how you... So that's one of the things that right from the get-go I noticed. I thought, wow, this is somebody who's been here before. And I think our ability to just kind of laugh, and the majority of the time at each other. Like when you wake up in the middle of the night and you find yourself lying beside someone and you're laughing about something, something that either the other person said or, And I think, wow, that's so wonderful, because life is so fragile, it's so short, and we take ourselves way too seriously. And now, you know, we just make each other laugh a lot. And I find that I find her very, very easy to be around, and that's the thing. And I can be totally myself. You know, I don't have to be trying to be anybody else. I'm just like me, and she seems to like me, so you know. I'm still trying to figure out why, but she really genuinely does. She thinks I'm great. So I mean,
well, you think she's great too.
I do, yeah. So long, you know, it's a Specsavers moment. Long may that last. You know what I mean? It's great. Yeah, she's great.
Tom, what was it like when you were working with people like, I suppose, Jerry Halliwell or Cliff Richard? You know, was that kind of an easy relationship? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to have, you know, like over the years, what I've found is, you know, I'm kind of comfortable in my own skin, right? And I think that a lot of these people, when you relate to them on a very kind of a human basis, I don't believe in airs and graces, you know. I'm really good friends with Jerry, you know, my favourite Spice Girl, as I call her. But you know, or Ronan or any of these people. But for me, what I learned from a lot of the older writers or writers that had come before me that I was co-writing with was that really when you're in the room or when you're in a co-writing situation or you're producing, you know, it's all about the song. So like I can switch off everything else. And so it doesn't really matter who I'm working with. It's the same approach. It's the sort of, it's like the birth of a song. You block out everything else, but in a natural way, because you're so focused. You're not thinking about your phone, your dinner, your bills, what time it is. You're so engrossed in the fact that there's something about to be either born or developed here. I had Nathan Carter in the studio yesterday in the church, and he wasn't coming last week or the week before we wrote. And yesterday he wasn't coming to write. I was actually going to play him a few songs for possibly a new record that he's working on. And he said something to me. He said, "Isn't that a great line or a great concept?" And you know, the piano was there. And all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, we're in the song. So we didn't say, okay, let's write that. It's just that it happened. And then for the next hour, time just disappeared. And then we finished it. And that's what I love about it. That's what I love about music. Because in that way, there's a certain calmness in there. You know, there's a certain little area. I find sometimes when I perform, not all the time, but if I can get back into the moment where the song was written, then that door opens up or that window opens up. Like I would never have thought when I was writing Sunday Drive, like Sunday Drive is a song about us all getting into Dad's car after Sunday lunch. Sunday lunch in our house was earlier, obviously, because it's the Sunday we all went to Mass. When you were old enough, maybe you were allowed to cycle, but majority of the time, you know, we went to Mass in Dad's car. Dad never had a good car. It was always, the car was just about able.
No wonder.
Yeah.
11 children, where did you put them?
I know. Well, that was the thing. I mean, we all sat on everybody else's lap in the back. There was no seat belts. Mom had whatever baby she had in the front.
Yeah.
I remember thinking later in life, oh my God, Mum and Dad would be deciding after lunch when we'd have dessert on a Sunday, you know, we'd be saying, Mum would say, where will we go for the drive? And they'd pick, you know, all these different places. We had cousins in Kilmallock, we had cousins in Thurles, with all this. But we always ended up in Killaloo. It was like this sort of a thing, you know, so every time, Killaloo, the lookout, that's where, or the handball alley on the lake, you know. So many years later, and I'm in Nashville, and I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, geez, if I could only get that day back. Dad driving, we're all singing in the back of the car. You know, and that song, you know, which is quite a kind of a parochial sort of a setting, if you like, isn't it? You know,
but it's very familiar to a lot of families.
And all of a sudden, that song
of a time
takes off in America because there's all these other people that, you know, it wasn't the same circumstance, but it was. So that's
the same memory.
That's the beauty of songwriting, and I still think that it's all about communication.
And do you like performing, Don?
Well, I didn't initially. I signed a record deal when I was too young, and you know, I played in this tiny little place called the Troubadour, and you've probably been there. It's a tiny place in London, and I played 15 minutes, and got offered a record deal from Corb, which was, Leanne Rimes and Tim McGraw's record label in the States. Well, I would have been 23, I suppose,
That's
24.
young,
And I didn't have a manager, I didn't have an agent, I didn't have anybody to advise me, I didn't have a lawyer, I didn't have anything. So I ended up making that record, and everything that they loved about me, that they saw on the gig, was everything they wanted to change about me. It was a bizarre thing, And basically that first record, on my first record deal, it almost was another pivotal moment for me, because I almost gave up the whole thing, the music.
Why so?
Well, because I hated it so much. I didn't want to be the artist as such. I didn't like what I had to be, or people's perception of what I should be. And I fought with them all the time, because all I wanted to do was, if I was going to make a record, I just wanted it to be about songs that really meant a lot to me. And the songs that they wanted me, and which I put on the record, apart from maybe one or two, were songs that I'd written for other people.
Okay.
And I thought, I don't even like performing these. And I was writing just for the sake of writing, because I love songwriting. And I thought, here's a bunch of songs that I really like to sing. I might make my own record this time. Forget about a record company. I'm going to make my own record. So I took time out to put these songs together, and some I wrote myself and some I wrote with my favourite writers. And I thought, hey, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go out on the road and I'll try them out in front of people. Hadn't gigged for a few years. And we did, James and I think we did 18 dates in a row in Ireland. Now, everything from, pubs to clubs to everything. And all I did was play those songs. Nobody had ever heard them before. And I thought, if people like them, I'll make the record. And people were singing along, very shocked.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what, that's my sign from the universe. So I made the record, and then, look, thank God, touch wood, the record came out, went to #1. And then it was a wonderful experience, because I just invited people that I really loved, that I'd worked with over the years, everybody from Francis Black to Paul Brady to Nathan and all of these people, just to sing on the record with me. Literally. It wasn't even duets, it was just backing vocals, or Brian Kennedy and, Stella Parton and all these people. And they all were delighted to do it. And then the shows in the University Concert Hall in Limerick started, and, it was a lovely kind of way back into it again, from something that I was so close to giving up. I was just so close.
Yeah.
What lesson would you learn from that now?
True to yourself, I don't believe in regrets, but if there was something that I would have changed, it would have been, I should have been stronger and gone, you know what, thanks for the offer of the record, but that's not what I want to do. The record that I want to make is this record. And if you don't hear that, then you're not the right label for me.
You're really somebody who, as you said before, you live in the moment, and you embrace opportunities. And you've got a very nice, reflective, aspect to your personality, Don. But you've also spoken about the fact that you suffer sometimes from depression.
Yeah, I think I used to think that the depression started maybe after Dad died, but I actually maybe it was just kind of a generic thing, and look, that's been a real stumbling block for me.
How do you process
it? It's difficult.
It's
very difficult. You see, I think that I don't drink alcohol anymore. I don't take anything, and I think that I was kind of masking it with the alcohol a lot of the time, because I thought that was making me feel a bit better. But you see, the lows then after the alcohol were so low that I just couldn't get back from it. So that was a very difficult time for me. It was hard, the sort of nuts and bolts of it are, you go through, you go and you get help from a lot of people, and you get advice from people and psychiatrists and everything else. But, to find the person who kind of understands you or gets you, that's a difficult thing to find. I kind of feel sorry for anybody who's starting off on that road, that they realise that there's something else in their life that they're struggling with. Yeah. But it's not so much about that. It's about finding the person that kind of gets you. And I was lucky that I was seeing somebody in a clinic in Kent, and he got me. He said, all of this stuff that has happened to you from your dad and all these other things that have happened in the years, you brought them all home and you put them in a box under your bed. And that's how you dealt with it. You put it away. It's there, but it's not. You're not dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. And then it just took that last thing that you went to put in the box and it didn't fit. And the top opened and it all came out. And that was the moment that was my lowest moment, if you like. And that was a really dark moment in my life where,
do you have to be vigilant around
I do.
your mental health?
I do. But it's a weird thing, you know, and I'm sure Mara wouldn't mind me saying this, but Mara's very receptive like that, you know, like it you know, it's definitely a condition and it comes, you know, and for me, you know, I remember being in New York and I should have been celebrating. The Backstreet Boys were just after cutting Trouble Is, or after having a hit. Everything. I was in a fantastic hotel. I'd been flown over there for the long, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I was at the lowest ebb. So it doesn't, you know, it's not, you're not going to be at the lowest when you don't have anything or your life is terrible. Life was great.
And still you were depressed.
It comes in waves. I see it afterwards, where maybe I don't call anybody, and then eventually it leaves.
I'm just remembering, Don, that you produced Christy Dignam's last album while he was dying, wasn't he?
While he was dying.
What
Poor
was
old
that
Christy.
like?
Many years ago, I had, through a friend of ours, actually, Willie Kavanagh. So when Willie Kavanagh was running EMI, Willie's a great friend of mine. When Willie Kavanagh was the MD of EMI for maybe 25 years. And Willie, bless his sweetheart, he just loved my songwriting. Anyway, he had placed one of my songs with Aslan, and they had a #1 with it, Too Late for Hallelujah. So that struck up a relationship between myself and Christy. Not really myself and the band, just myself and Christy. We were cool. And when COVID happened, out of the blue, I got a call from Christy, and it was, how's it going, dude? I have a bit of a bucket list or whatever, and I'd like to make a solo record. And I was thinking, oh, you know, wow, you know, tell me more. So we had these long conversations, and then he said, look, I'd love you to make the record for me. And I thought, wow, that's really nice. But with that came this huge responsibility because he was dying. So he knew, and I knew, it was going to be his last record. So, you know, I was kind of a little bit apprehensive because, you know, that's what he's going to be leaving behind him. And it was Christy started calling it his legacy record. Believe me, that isn't something I would have called another artist's record. So I was very aware that a lot of people were going to listen to this record, and I did not want to get it wrong, you know. So it was an unbelievable journey with somebody that I didn't really know. Like, I didn't know him all my life. Towards the end of it, he was obviously very conscious of his own, you know, mortality or whatever. And he'd come up to the church and he was exhausted. Now, he wouldn't even be driving, you know, Darren, his nephew, or his daughter, or Kira, they'd drive him. And he would be exhausted by the time he just arrived. And then there was this magic, I used to call it the magic hour, where you get 1 hour out of him. And after the hour, it was literally, you could look at your watch. And after the hour, he was gone. He was either wanted to fall asleep, he was just tired and exhausted. Flattened. Yeah. And it was always on the day after he got the steroids. So when he get these, and I watched it kind of wane with him, with the most fun. And
it must have been very poignant as well.
It was very poignant, and you had to be very aware. You know. Hey, listen, Christy would never be backward about coming forward. Like he either loved something or he didn't. He didn't want to do it. You know. So you know, because I wrote the songs for it. I wrote 9 songs on that record. The big thing was I had to get it past him because he's going to be singing them. And he'd say to me, Jesus, man, Jesus. He'd say, you know, you're inside me fucking head now. That's what happened to me. But you see, I suppose I was drawn from some of the time with my crazy rock and roll years in London. And some of the songs are kind of about that. And of course, that he was able to relate to that. So it was a lovely match of personalities in a lot of ways. And then towards the end, he just said to me, look, I can't even make it a Cavan anymore. I'm fucked, really. So I said, okay. But he said, how are we going to finish it? I said, we'll finish in your kitchen. So I take all the gear up to his kitchen. And I recorded maybe four of the vocals in his kitchen. And that was funny too, because he was in his own environment and he loved to have a cigarette. Christina, I actually started smoking when I was working on that record because I realised that was my time that I was going to get with him to chat about songs and all when he'd go out and have a cigarette. So I thought, well, I might as well start smoking.
He was such a legend.
He was a legend, you know, and he didn't suffer fools, you know. I have such gratitude. And he said to me, you don't know, he said, you kept me going for months with the mixes because he'd be waiting to hear it. And then the phone would go, 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, fuck it, I love it. You know what I mean? Oh, Jesus, man. You know, like, and that would feel so good for me.
That was pure medicine.
Wasn't it? You know, so I was so blessed.
Don, we have a question that we ask everybody.
Oh.
And you're not going to escape. If there's one thing that you would like to change, given that we are talking about changing times, and my goodness, you've spoken a lot about change.
Yeah.
Is there something that you would like to change for yourself or generally, or the world, or the country?
Well, look, it's going to sound generic, and but I don't mean it to be. I just look. I think we're not in a good place at the moment in the world. You know, and I know everybody's probably thinking the same, but we're not. Historically, I think we're at a really low ebb, and I'd love to change that. I know it's, you know, it's a soft kind of a word, but peace, you know, is such a, just to be able to relate to each other as human beings. I mean, I'm making a new record at the moment. I'm in the middle of making a record, and that's really the focus of the whole album. It's just this, we need a reality check, I think, in the world. But on every, like, it's not just the stuff that's going on, the Ukraine and Russia and all these other terrible things that are going on in the world, the thing in Israel and, oh God almighty, and the children and everything like that. But, you know, I think we've gone astray as human beings, and it saddens me. Like, I feel sad that we can't relate to each other as human beings. Peace would definitely be right up there. It would be the top of the pile, because I think with peace, everything else falls into place.
You're followed by luck all through your life, really, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I am. I think I am. You know, I think. But I always say it's my team. It's Dad and the rest of them up there. But I do feel, for somebody, you know, from a hand that had this dream in their bedroom of, you know, writing songs and maybe working with artists in America and all of that, and then all of a sudden, all of those things that I wished for came true. So a lot of the time, maybe I didn't spend enough time in that moment where I was celebrating it, because you kind of move on, don't you? But yeah, really, when I look back, I think I couldn't have dreamt it.
And that wraps up another episode of Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
A very big thank you to our producer, Enda Grace, here in the heart of Allenwood.
And we're deeply grateful also to Anne-Marie Staunton, our researcher.
Also, a big thank you to our sponsor, Kildare County Council, for their very steadfast support.
Don't forget to subscribe to Changing Times on your favourite podcast platform. That's hard to say. And also, please leave us a review.
And join us next time as we continue to explore the stories and voices shaping our community and our country.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council.
Hi, I'm Daniel, founder of Pretty Litter. Did you know cats tend to hide symptoms of sickness and pain? I learned this the hard way after losing my cat, Gingy. So I created Pretty Litter, a health monitoring litter that helps detect early signs of illness by changing colors, saving you money and potentially your cat's life. Pretty Litter is veterinarian developed, and it's the easiest way to keep tabs on your fur baby's health right at home.
Go to prettylitter.com and use code ACAST for 20% off your first order and a free cat toy. Terms and conditions apply. See site for details.
You don't have to blow your budget to buy a facial tissue that's strong, soft, absorbent, and aligns with your values. Scotty's Facial Tissue believes that value and values can live side by side. Not only does Scotty's make great tissues, but we're also part of an organization that has planted over 1 billion trees since 1957. So don't blow your budget to keep your beliefs. Visit Scotty'sFacial.com to learn more.